Ah, the dreaded hamstring strain. If you've ever played or watched any sport with sprinting, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's one of the most frustrating injuries out there, right? It can completely derail a season. But what if there was a way to cut through all the myths and look at what the science actually says about preventing them? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. Let's translate that hard research into practice. First things first, let's just get a sense of the scale here. We're not talking about some rare, unlucky accident. Hamstring injuries are a massive, widespread, and incredibly stubborn problem for athletes at pretty much every level of sport. Yeah, this picture, it says it all, doesn't it? You've seen this 1,000 times. An athlete is in full flow, absolutely flying, and then, boom, they pull up, grabbing the back of their leg. It's just such a perfect and painful visual of how a hamstring can stop peak performance dead in its tracks. And this number, this is what makes hamstring injuries an absolute nightmare for athletes and coaches. It's not about the first injury, it's the re-injury rate. Almost half, up to 43% of athletes who pull a hamstring will do it again in the very same season. It's this vicious cycle that makes them so tough to get rid of. And don't think this is just a sprinter's problem. Not at all. The data is crystal clear. Hamstring strains are the #1 most common injury in a ton of sports that rely on high-speed running. We're talking professional soccer, Australian rules football, track and field, you name it. Year after year, it's at the top of the injury list. Okay, so we've established it's a huge problem. That's step one. But just knowing that doesn't fix it, right? To actually do something about it, we have to get into the nitty-gritty, the how and the why these things happen in the first place. We have to understand the mechanics. So when you boil it all down, hamstrings tend to get injured in one of two main ways. On the left, you've got the most common one by far, the sprinting-related injury. But then on the right, you have another type, a stretch-related injury. Think about a soccer player winding up for a huge kick, or a dancer. Any movement that pushes that muscle into an extreme range. Now this table, this is brilliant because it lays it all out so clearly for us. Look at this. If you get hurt while sprinting, chances are it's this one specific muscle, the long head of the biceps femoris. But if it's from a big stretch, like a kick, it's usually a totally different muscle, the semimembranosus, and it's much closer to your hip. So the big takeaway here is this. What you're doing determines what gets hurt. And that, well, that's everything when it comes to prevention. So, with that crucial clue, how does sports science actually figure out how to stop these things? Well, it's not just guesswork or throwing ideas at a wall. There's actually a really smart, logical process that researchers use to solve these kinds of problems, system by system. And here it is. It's this awesome 4-step loop that you can apply to just about anything. Step 1, figure out how big the problem is. Step 2, find the cause, what we just did with sprinting versus stretching. Step 3, introduce a fix, like a new exercise. And then step 4, and this is the most important part, you go all the way back to step 1 and check if your fix actually worked. It's a beautiful, evidence-based cycle. And the best part? For hamstrings, scientists and researchers have run this exact playbook over and over and over again. And guess what? It worked. We now have proven science-backed exercises that we know can make a massive difference. Okay, so the secret sauce is something called eccentric conditioning. I know, it sounds super technical, but the idea is actually really simple. It's all about strengthening a muscle while it's getting longer. Think of your hamstring as the brakes on your leg. When you're sprinting and your leg swings forward, the hamstring has to slam on the brakes to slow it down just before your foot hits the ground. And that exact moment, that braking action while it's lengthening, is when it's most vulnerable. So that's precisely what we need to train. And don't just take my word for it. The results are, well, they're kind of mind-blowing. This is a quote from a huge study, a meta-analysis in one of the world's top sports medicine journals. They looked at data from nearly 8,500 athletes and found that adding one specific exercise, the Nordic Hamstring Curl, can literally cut the injury rate in half. And it gets even better. When you zoom in on the studies where the athletes actually did the program consistently, the numbers are just off the charts. We're talking a 65 to 70% drop in injuries. I mean, that's not just an improvement. For a team or an athlete, that is a complete game changer. But listen, it's not just about one magic exercise. A truly bulletproof program is a whole strategy. You have to specifically target that vulnerable biceps femoris muscle. Yes, you need that eccentric work like the Nordic curl, for sure. But you also have to balance it with other hip-focused exercises, like a Romanian deadlift. And this is key. You have to keep making it harder over time.
All right, so we've gone through a ton of science here. What does this all really mean for you? What's the bottom line that's going to help you train smarter and stay in the game?
Here are the big things to lock in. Number 1, hamstring injuries are super common, but they do not have to be inevitable. You are not doomed to get them. Number 2, remember, high-speed running is the main culprit. That's the danger zone. Number 3, that eccentric training with the Nordic curl as the star player is your absolute best weapon. The science on that is solid. And maybe most importantly, number 4, stop thinking of this as extra work. Injury prevention is performance training. A durable athlete is a better athlete. So, I'll just leave you with this one thought to chew on. It's easy to train to be strong, to train to be fast, but are you training to be available? Because what good is being the best player on the team if you're watching from the sidelines? It really forces you to ask, are you just training to perform, or are you training to last?